Hello there and welcome to the sculpting series, in which we'll make this cute looking seahorse from scratch. So if you want to learn how to sculpt from reference or just learn sculpting in general, this is a perfect mini series to get you started. Or even if you know your way around, stay tuned since you can always learn something new and interesting. The seahorse reference we're going to be using is available in the description for you to download, as well as the program PureRef I'm using here to display it on the screen at all times. The program is pretty easy to set up, just drag and drop the reference and you should be fine. So we're actually going to start from this cube. Now I just went to the edit mode and I'm going to show you a few things. So you can see these dots here make up a face. These dots are called vertices, and you can see we have multiple faces on this cube. So if I go and count them, there are 6 of them, which is displayed down here. And if we want to sculpt, we actually need a lot more faces than 6. But there is a quick way to actually do that. So what we are going to do is go to the object mode and press Ctrl 4. You can see my keys down there in the right corner, which will add a modifier. The modifier, as you can see, made our cube into a spherical-like shape with a lot more faces. And then you can see here we can change the values, but you want to make sure to apply the modifier before we go into sculpt mode. So I can press here and apply it. And with the superior cube selected, let us actually jump finally into sculpt mode. So sculpting actually allows us to grab a basic shape such as this cube and express ourselves artistically. So I can use different brushes, for example the pinch brush, the grab brush, to get a different result and make other cool modifications quickly and like in a sort of a free-form way. And this sphere will actually be the head of our sea pony, as you can see on the reference, and we need to actually modify it a bit. But first I want to enable the symmetry on the x-axis, so everything we do on one side will be mirrored automatically to the other. The next thing we also want to enable is Dynamic Topology. And for now, all you need to know is this will help us make the snout. And I want you to copy my settings, so set the detailing method to constant detail and resolution to 20. And of course, keep the refine method to subdivide collapse. So with this enabled, now we will begin with the sculpting. So I will go to the side view with 3, so press 3 on your numpad and line up the sphere. Of course, you can see we have the grid here, which will actually help us determine the length of the snout which we are going to make. So here, as you can see, you probably have a display like this. So hover over the settings until you get the arrow, and you can pull it to actually see the names of the brushes. We are going to use the snake hook brush, put it like to the middle, and we are going to use it to extrude the snout. As you can see, pressing F actually gives you the ability to change the radius, and pressing Shift F gives you the ability to change the strength of the brush. And I'm going to make this bit bigger, and now I'm extruding the snout. Of course, I can make the shape smaller, and now refine the lips. Yeah, I think he has lips. Pretty cute though. And of course, now I can use this grab brush here to further modify the shape. So, as you can see here, this is extruded to about the half of the grid. And now what I want to do is make this a bit bigger and move around the head to get this line here. And keep in mind, sculpting actually consists of phases. The first phase being the one we are currently on, and we call this phase blocking out. It means we are not going to add any detail, but instead focus on making bigger shapes. So, for example, the eyes, the scales are going to be added a lot later in the detailing process. Of course, first we need to add the belly, the tail, and other exciting parts. Okay, let me further refine his jawline and also his snout. And as you can see now, we're always sculpting from the side view. So when I get this to where I'm happy, we're going to go all around and sculpt from different directions. First, let me also tweak this a bit, and feel free to take your time. Do not get into details, but spend a couple of minutes refining the main shape. And you can see I'm using different buttons to move around, such as Alt to pan around and Shift Alt to move around. But this is because I actually have the emulate 3 button mouse enabled, and see I'm using pen and tablet for sculpting. But you can also sculpt with mouse and keyboard. It's just based on preference. I'm going to make this a bit wider. And from top, I'm just going to narrow the snout here. Now let us actually make his head a bit thinner on the top. So we want him to be more acute looking. So what I'm going to do is also expand from the sides a bit. Give him some cute little fluffy cheeks. And from top, I'm also going to taper his head. If you ever drawn before, this is similar to this. Now we're actually refining the silhouette, making sure it looks good from all angles. This is going to go around a bit more. And this looks pretty good. Now I'm going to go to the object mode, and the next part we are going to make is the body. But I actually encourage you to make this cube into a version we can sculpt on, so feel free to pause the video, add a cube, and make a part from which we are going to make the body. Okay, we are back, and this is a quick guide for you to see if you have done it right. Or if you haven't, this is how you do it. So Ctrl 4, apply the modifier, and now we have the new mesh for the body. The only difference we are going to make is we are going to actually go to edit mode and scale it there. The scaling is usually done in edit mode, while moving and rotating is done in the object mode. And it's just the thing the Blender wants us to do. Now I'm just looking at the lines, so the snout is a bit more forward than the belly. As you can see, the belly is almost roughly 3 grids tall. Now I also want to make sure I enable Dynamic Topology and X Mirror. But also I'm going to put the resolution to 7, since we are not going to be sculpting much detail. So now what I'm going to do is actually with a snake hook brush, I'm going to extrude a neck. But now I can see that I actually want to bring body a bit more upwards. And of course, every time you go to the sculpt mode, you have to re-enable Dynamic Topology. And now I'm just pulling the neck upwards. And the next thing I'm going to do is with the grab brush, I'm just going to make the back curvature. Look to the reference, do a few movements and look back. Now I'm just flattening it down here, because later as a separate mesh we will add a pretty funky looking tail. Okay, let me also further refine the belly. He is actually fat and happy, so we want to actually capture that emotion and bring it to our scope. And of course, oh man, he ate some good planktons. He really did. So let us actually make him a bit thinner. Do they actually eat planktons? Man, I watched so many documentaries of seahorses, and like, first thing that popped to my mind, they eat planktons. Well, they sure would not be as fat as if they did. Now I'm just making him a bit thinner. Or I mean, if you want, you can sculpt a plump seahorse. I think it will look even more cute. And now I also want to make sure I look at it from below also, because this will be much thinner, since the back here is the connection with the tail. Also, now what I'm going to do is actually make the brush smaller. As you can see, I'm just tapping along his back to make the back thinner than the belly. Since here is his spine, here we are going to have the fins going all around, and this just makes sense that it should be thinner. Okay, now I'm just looking at the neck curvature. I want it to be slightly more S-shaped. And it's basically similar to drawing. I just look at the lines and try to make them as similar as possible. Except when it comes to 3D, you actually have to go around and see if it is fine in all directions. Now I just went to the object mode and put the head a little bit down below. And of course, I want to thank you all for watching. In the next episode, we'll actually sculpt the tail by using many more different exciting brushes, so consider subscribing, liking, and checking my course on how to make a game-ready character from zero. Links are in the description, and see you in a bit!